The world's largest asset manager just revealed something very interesting and confirmed what we've all known for a very long time, that the big dogs are here. The large pools of money are now coming into Bitcoin at a rapid rate. But it wasn't just Larry Fink and BlackRock saying this. We've heard it from Eric Trump and even James Check on my very podcast, hinting at a very large player or multiple buying Bitcoin. In today's video, I'm going to dive into everything that these guys have said and even hint at who I believe could be potentially be buying here and lay down some facts for you as to why we should be buckling up for a crazy ride here. But first, let's hear what Larry Fink had to say.
Legitimate long-only investors investing in it. There was an article about a foundation, endowment just bought a lot of IBIT. But I can tell you there are a number of sovereign funds that are standing by. They're adding incrementally at 120, at 100. I know they bought more in the 80s. Right. That's fine. And they're establishing a longer position. And you own it over years. This is not a trade.
So you hear what Larry Fink is saying. He's coming out and saying that this is not a trade, that he is looking at this, and as well as his other sovereign wealth funds, the big money managers are looking at this as a long-term play. So this short-term price movement shouldn't shock anybody. And the interesting thing is that all of you plebs here listening, you guys are lowering the amount of wallets with 10 million sats. Meanwhile, these guys are coming in and buying, but it's been out there for a while that a lot of these big players are potentially buying Bitcoin. And it wasn't just Larry Fink saying this. Something peculiar from Eric Trump just a few weeks ago is what he said about potential other big players buying Bitcoin as well. So now let's listen in.
Question related to the people that you talked with, not mentioning names, of course, but sovereigns, large-scale institutions, as you run into them across the world, and you're a real estate guy, is this a digital land grab? Is a digital land grab going on right now?
Oh God, in ways that you can't even imagine. Let me give you the sovereign wealth. I can tell you, and we know all of them, and they are all buying Bitcoin right now.
So you hear that? They are all buying Bitcoin, the sovereign wealth funds, and they know all of them. And the interesting thing of all of this is if you look at the amount of sovereign wealth funds, and for those of you guys who keep coming, you guys know I love to show this because it just highlights the amount of wealth that is stored in these sovereign wealth funds. It's absolutely massive. So if you guys have come and seen this, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Either way, hit that like button for me. Smoke it like Cheech and Chong, as my fellow chat members always say. But either way, this pool of capital is different. And I know we say this in the Bitcoin space all the time, that this cycle is different for X amount of reasons, but it's the big players that are coming in that makes the hugest amount of difference. I mean, we've seen massive sell-offs here that are uncommon for this Bitcoin space. In fact, we've seen the largest sell-off from Bitcoin whales that we've ever seen in Bitcoin's history. But something that James Check hinted on this very channel not too long ago was very interesting. And hearing what Larry Fink and Eric Trump said reminded me of this from Checkmatey here on this very channel. Like big enough pockets for it to be some sort of government, or do you think it's something official? Yeah.
No, it has to be a government or banks, or it's some entity who is large. And when I say entity, it's not going to be just one big monster. It's going to be many of these things, but like the scale of the selling, like we were seeing billions of dollars a day, several $1 billion a day. Retail doesn't have that kind of money. Like it's just not individuals. So we are seeing big entities starting to accumulate. And
so he's saying you're starting to see big players starting to accumulate. And the reason I think that this might be obvious on who it is, or at least I had to do a little bit of digging here, is that we've seen a lot of, I guess, coincidences line up here. We've seen the UAE and the Trump team get very close here in the past, let's call it since the Trump presidency came in, where we even saw Donald Trump meeting with the Saudi prince, and they've got their own, I guess, crypto arm, so to speak, in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And the interesting aspect of what these guys got going on is that, Trump's businesses with Saudi Arabia have involved his family's real estate, golf, other large US Saudi agreements, and even the Live Golf, which I think is kind of an interesting little twist here. But Saudi Arabia is one of the most richest and powerful nations in the world due to its oil reserves. And so, of course, we've got the petrodollar and all of that aspect of things. And that makes it very interesting. And, we've already heard through rumblings that the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund has been adding to its IBIT Bitcoin positions for quite some time. Now, the reason why I think that these guys are all hinting at Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi is that they're just the proximity. If you look at the meetings and how these guys are interacting, these are the guys with huge pocketbooks. They've got endless oil reserves, and they've got money as far as the eye can see. And so because they've got that, they keep doing deals with the US. Well, it just makes sense that this could be potentially going on behind the scenes where they're buying Bitcoin and they don't necessarily want to admit it. And because they're such a big energy dense company or country, we're looking at the potential of saying Saudi Arabia, oh, you know what? We don't want to be admitting we're buying Bitcoin. So we're going to store all of these Bitcoin miners. We're going to use them in our oil rigs. All the excess energy, we're going to all get that together and have it mine Bitcoin. Now, there is other sovereign wealth funds that this could be. And what we've seen already is that we've seen the Luxembourg Sovereign Wealth Fund invest in Bitcoin. And they bought the Bitcoin ETF, which I think is interesting as well, because we've seen other sovereign wealth funds get into Bitcoin. But now that these IBIT Bitcoin ETF products are available, now they're able to go and buy Bitcoin. I'm not going to say buy Bitcoin directly because it is through Larry Fink and BlackRock, but they're able to get Bitcoin exposure directly. What we've seen previously is that all of these countries and sovereign wealth funds, retirement funds, they'd been getting exposure through MSTR. Now, obviously, we just saw the giant coordinated attack that I've been detailing on this channel between JP Morgan, Wall Street, and versus MicroStrategy. And I think that all of these sovereign wealth funds, they've got so much money at stake, and all of these big players got so much money in stake. They know what's going on. They know that BlackRock, JP Morgan, Larry Fink, all of these guys want to lead them to something where Michael Saylor isn't going to be going to see his bags pumping quite as much. It's going to see BlackRock's bags pumping more, right? They're not going to be pumping all of these guys necessarily. They're going to be pumping their own bags, which JP Morgan and BlackRock have a very close working relationship, let's call it. JP Morgan now custodies a lot of BlackRock's assets, whereas, JP Morgan also has been working with BlackRock as an asset manager. I mean, if you look back and forth, it's like essentially they're working hand in hand. It's similar to how we see the overall like chip and AI industry right now. Because if you look at the chip and AI industry, all of those guys are essentially just buying from each other. The chip makers are funding the AI softwares and back and forth. But these gigantic entries now buying Bitcoin are very interesting, right? Because now this is where we're seeing the price manipulation. We're seeing people come in and trying to manipulate the aspects of Bitcoin. And, I had Simon Dixon on. He talked about, this global monetary war that we're going on, where, the financial banking institution is now at odds with Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump getting mixed in with them? Who knows? I did a video kind of saying that I believe that they're at war with each other at this point, where, Trump is trying to fight the good fight, potentially be getting out of, let's call it the swamp, right? That he said he so famously claimed he was going to drain, but didn't quite do that last time. So he has his own criticisms as well. So it's all a very unique relationship that Bitcoin is starting to play with traditional finance. And who is going to win? Well, I think Bitcoin, the incentives are always going to reign supreme over time. Nobody can end up controlling Bitcoin. And I think Wall Street's going to try to hang on as much as they can. I mean, we've already seen it with Operation Chokepoint 2.0. I think they lost control with cryptography, so to speak, and the ability to transact back and forth. I think Bitcoin really takes the power away from these banks, and they're realizing it, right? So all of these different, let's call it big money managers, are realizing that Bitcoin takes the power away from them. They want to keep that power as much as possible. But now these sovereign wealth funds getting in makes it very interesting. Because as these sovereign wealth funds, the big money managers that are coming in, it's like, well, what are they doing? Why are they getting exposure to Bitcoin? Is it because they're losing trust in the dollar? Even though we're seeing massive amounts of funding go into the United States, and it's all kind of connected to all of this. Trump becoming the first quote unquote crypto president, I think plays a huge role into why countries like Saudi Arabia are really looking into the United States. We're going to dive into more of this, but during this time, I think it's vital that you guys do not sell your Bitcoin, especially during these dips. I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin addresses with 0.1 Bitcoin or 10 million sats, during this last dip, folks, it fell. The amount of Bitcoin addresses was 0.1 Bitcoin, and for some reason, it's not loading for me now. But that fell while the amount of institutions with 1,000 Bitcoin or more grew, which tells me one thing, folks. It tells me that all of these people worldwide see what we all should be seeing. We all should see that, hey, the number of Bitcoin addresses with 10 million sats decreased, yet the number of Bitcoin addresses or the number of entities with 1,000 Bitcoin or more increased. So these big guys, as Larry Fink lined out in that clip I showed you guys at the beginning, these big guys will buy during the dips because this is a long-term play. They aren't trading. But if you need to unlock some security or some liquidity, folks, I've got the solution for you. You guys can go to saltlending.com/green-candle today. You guys can do that. Use promo code GCSALT-01 at checkout, and you'll get 50 basis points off the best offer. And look, they're offering some of the best rates at 9 under 10%, 12-month duration, 70% LTV, and no prepayment fees. And the best yet, if you see it crashing and burning, you don't need to worry about liquidation. You could get the Salt Shield, which is a great product to help you sleep stress-free. And do it now because Trump and the Saudi prince are heating up ties. And that's where I think things are going to get interesting, right? Because not only is Saudi Arabia one of the most oil-dense countries in the world, right? Which makes it one of the most energy-dense countries countries in the world. I think it's very, very, let's say, just very interesting here. Caffeine AI allows non-technical people to become cryptographers and computer programmers on chain with no centralized computer. Hey, that's pretty interesting. But AI is just, I mean, I hear it all the time. People are just going vibe coding over the weekend. Bitcoin Blitz saying he's not happy about these gigantic guys. I mean, me neither, brother. But hey, if Bitcoin wasn't meant to survive this, then Bitcoin wasn't meant to become what Bitcoin is going to become. Because, I mean, the unique thing is like, I've done a video on the breakdown of traditional wealth and compared it to Bitcoin wealth. And every single time, we think we've got the plebs here, man. We've got the plebs. You guys are scooping up sats. We got this dip. You're on Bitcoin Twitter. You and all your friends are buying up. Well, unfortunately, not every Bitcoin Twitter does not represent the majority of people. They're selling when we're down to 91,000. So when you keep looking at Bitcoin and watch how it's, let's say, just developing over this time period, I think that more countries and nation states are going to come in. What I think is interesting is the way that Russia is going to approach it. Russia's top economic advisor says Bitcoin plays a major role in the economy and should be counted in national trade stats. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but not too long ago, people were saying Russia was using Bitcoin to avoid sanctions. So what is it now? Is Russia actually using Bitcoin? What is the deal here? I think it's really interesting when you keep diving in to where Bitcoin really lies comparatively in all of these different economies, because I think as you keep diving in and you keep seeing people like Larry Fink come in and go all in, and then now you even have JP Morgan coming out and saying crazy things like this, like Bitcoin should be $170,000. We're sitting at literally like 50% of that right now. But I think over time, it's going to become, more regulated. It's going to become positive. But, is that regulation good? Maybe for the average Joe, that's what they think. They want regulation. But I think over time, we're going to start to see Bitcoin really take a life of its own. And with that, you really got to look at how the development and the aspect and the curve is here, right? Because Saylor's coming out and saying, "Oh, you know what? I think I lost audio, but 8 out of 10 banks have flipped their stance in the last 6 months when it comes to Bitcoin." So all of these banks are really starting to see the true power of the fixed supply, right? They're starting to look at it as a positive and not, oh, Bitcoin is for, some sketchy people. Bitcoin's for money laundering. It's all for all these things. I think banks are starting to see that it's the true store of value. That's the point banks are at. But if Bitcoin is the truest and purest form as a store of value, you don't want it in a bank. There's a reason that these banks keep attacking Bitcoin and Bitcoin companies. The reason being is that they know it replaces them, that they don't need it. So this is why I think self-custody is extremely important. If you guys are watching this today, you missed out on the Black Friday deals, but the Trezor Safe 7, the Trezor Safe 3, and the Trezor Safe 5 are still available, folks. They're still available. You can go down to the show notes, click the affiliate link down below. Be sure to do that and buy yourself a Trezor. It's the best way to store your Bitcoin. So go on down and do that. To store your Bitcoin, you need to store it on some metal. So you could go to cryptosteel.com/greencandle, use promo code greencandle for 10% off your entire order. Do it quickly because you guys need to get them off exchanges for Christmas, man. We're doing check your keys days here in the next few days. So I'm hinting at that. So be on the lookout for that with CryptoSteel. So get your Bitcoin off exchanges. Do it today because the big players are here, folks. These guys aren't playing around with little amounts of money. They got $1.7 trillion giant, the Norwegian pension fund. They've got the UAE, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, these guys with trillions of dollars just in their sovereign wealth funds, mind you, right? If these are in the sovereign wealth funds, this is just excess. So these big players have a ton of money to throw around. And those big bags, folks, well, those big amounts of money, they're coming quickly. And they're going to be buying, and they keep buying. They keep buying at low levels. They buy at 80,000. They buy at all these different areas. So be sure to smoke that like Cheech and Chong. Hit that subscribe button with the bell notification so you guys can join me at the next live stream. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.